Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barreled Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Barrel Surf Podcast.
Yeehaw!
It's Sunday afternoon. I'm back in my shed. My name's Adzy. I'm the host. I'm doing a little segment for Barreled Surf Podcast. Our segments here today is on a good friend of mine and local Yelling Up identity known as Kiwi Bradzy. How are you, Bradzy?
Good, Adzy.
That's good, mates.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries. Well, it's good to just come in the shed and have a couple of beers because we surf together a lot and work together all the time, but got busy schedules and don't often take the time to sit down and have a beer. So worst case scenario, at least we're having a beer in the shed.
And a couple of oddies.
And a couple of voddies. We'll get to your vodka penchant later because that is actually intertwined in the story that I've got you in here to tell. But anyway, so yeah, we're here for Barreled Surf Podcast, and we're going to do a little interview with Bradzy here today, and we're going to start, Bradzy, with the same sort of things we start with everyone. So we'll start with your name and age and occupation and where do you live, just to get the ball rolling. Paint the picture for us, Brassy.
I'm Brad Smith. I'm 49, originally from Christchurch in the South Island, New Zealand, and been in Yelling Up for about 25 years.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
And you're a jib rocker by trade?
Jib rocker by trade, yep.
With your buddy Kel?
Yep, we started up a business here about 25 years ago, and everything's going well, pretty busy.
Just rolled in as a couple of young punks who thought they knew how to slap jib rock on the walls and called yourself professionals, and now you got a team of about bloody 10 people working for you, and you're doing all the biggest top-end houses in some of the fanciest bloody suburbs in Australia.
Yeah, no, it's going well, and always sort of see surfers on the job sites like yourself and other tradies, and yeah, no, it's a good place to be.
Good part of the world to live in.
Yeah.
And mate, it's pretty funny that you've been in WA here for 25 years now, but you're still commonly known as Kiwi Bradzy. I don't think you're ever gonna shake that one. You're still in my phone as Kiwi Bradzy, so that's just the way it is, isn't it? But there's a lot of love between Anzacs, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
So it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all right, mate. And you live in a pretty bloody nice place. You live very close to our local main break, and also the local Caves House, which is an iconic pub of the area. So short walk down to the pub and a quick jog down to the main beach. It's pretty lucky where you live. You're very close to the beach.
Yeah, it's handy on the long weekend Caves Sunday sessions because we usually have a few drinks at home and walk through the bush to the pub. That usually takes about 20 minutes or so, and the walk home usually takes about an hour. But
yeah, pretty standard.
Yeah, that saves getting taxis, and it's a good little spot to live.
And you keep pretty fit, a lot fitter than me, obviously. I like to call it a personal flotation device, but yeah, and you do a lot of running. A lot of jogging down to Yales and down to Smiths Beach and through the national parks. Pretty ideal, really, for someone who wants to sort of do those sorts of activities.
For sure, and having a couple of dogs, it's always good to sort of get them on the beach and give them a bit of exercise as well, and checking the surf while you're doing it. Yep.
Yes.
No, it's good.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, let's start with your surfing career. How old were you roughly when you sort of got into surfing, and how did you find your way into surfing in the cold, frigid waters of New Zealand?
It was probably when we were about 10. We came across, we were doing some garage sales, and we came across an old surfboard in an old guy's shed. And he pretty much gave it to us for free, and we took it down to the water, and it had no fins in it.
Yeah, right. Who's we, by the way?
Oh, a couple of mates from home, yeah.
Okay.
Dave Christensen and Kelly McDonald, and it sort of started from there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you found one board at a garage sale with no fins between the three of you.
Yep.
And that was it. You just
what
did you do? You put fins in it and shared it?
We just didn't even put fins in it and just shared it. And it just sort of snowballed from there. A teacher at primary school was the main photographer in the South Island, and he took us on board, and he'd have surf school every Friday, and then he sort of slowly started taking us on surf trips, and then started taking a few photos, and it just sort of expanded from there. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Classic. Yep. And mate, was it purely a summer pursuit? I mean, it was pretty cold there, I'm guessing, or how did you go? Wetsuits, or what was the deal?
It was all year round. I mean, back in those days, there wasn't many people surfing where we lived.
Yep.
And there was no wetties, and we used to surf in woolen jumpers, and the old hats the old people used to wear with the old frilly, the swimmer hats.
Oh yeah.
The old we used to surf with those. Dishwashing gloves as gloves, and
really?
and tracky pants.
Get out here.
Yeah, that was
tracky pants.
That was the winter suit.
Woolen jumpers, dishwashing gloves, and the old lady swimmers caps.
With the frilly sort of rubber hats with the frilly things on the top. Yeah, that was our winter suit.
Wow, that's that's a good look.
And I mean, we didn't.
I reckon you should run that again one day at Yowls. see everyone looks at you.
And we didn't know any difference, so that was just the way it was.
And what year was that? You reckon?
That was 1980.
1980. Yeah, wow. So all of you had the same get up. You all had
the same get up.
Yeah.
Maybe different washing gloves. One had pink, one had yellow.
That's classic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So and obviously Kel, that name there, Kelly McDonald, is a man that I know as well, who came over here and started up a business with this. You guys have been mates for a very long time.
Yeah, he lived down the road. He sort of started surfing a bit later, but he was the first one that had his license. He had the first car, so he was always the transport for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't help much though, because you told me he's a bit of a shocking driver and nearly killed you a couple of times. Maybe those stories will come up. But,
he's actually nearly killed me twice down K's Road going surfing. So yeah.
Yeah. Right. Oh well. So getting his license early didn't necessarily mean he had better skills.
Nah, not at all.
Yeah. Right. Classic. And mate, how cold was the water there? Roughly.
Sort of 12 degrees, I think, 14 degrees, 12 or 14.
That's cold, isn't it?
So you came in from a surf and you couldn't unlock your car door. Your hands were that sort of stiff. If you jumped in the shower, your hands sort of doubled in size from the cold to hot.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty
Bursting
cold.
blood vessels.
Real ice cream headaches, yeah.
And so you did that for a few years. How'd you get your first wetty?
I think... Yeah, about 14, Mum and Dad sort of bought us a steamer. That was the first one, a 2 mil steamer.
2 mil? Jesus.
And it sort of went from there. But yeah, to get that 2 mil steamer was a big step up.
Oh, mate, would have felt that good.
Yeah.
Even though now a 2 mil steamer just wouldn't do a thing.
Wouldn't cut the mustard.
Not to mention it wouldn't have had glue sealed seams or any of that jazz. It was just some old duck probably stitched together with fishing lines.
That's it. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I see you shivering out at Yowls waiting for sets in a 3-2 these days. But yeah, we're all a bit harder back then when we were just frothing groms, weren't we?
Oh, definitely. When you don't know any different, you just roll with what you got, don't you?
So maybe let's push that technical first board aside, because that seemed like a bit of a groupie board. What was the next board? Can you remember? That probably would have felt more like your genuine first board that you owned individually, or maybe it was a new one, or can you remember anything that stuck out?
I think it was always hand-me-downs from the older guys. Yeah, we always sort of got the hand-me-downs. But back then it was definitely twin fins were in, and a few thrusters going around, a couple of nice old single fins.
Yeah, so a bit of everything.
Yeah, I remember a mate had a nice old singly from Bradzy. He gave him a nice old single fin.
Is that a local Kiwi shaper?
Ian Buchanan, he's actually a WSL judge now.
Is he?
Yeah, he was
right.
sort of number one in New Zealand back there, but he came from the same town.
Oh, cool.
And he had a couple of nice old boards he'd give the boys,
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
There you go. And what about like magazines and movies? Did you was there any of that you can remember in those early days that once you got into surfing, you sort of picked up on them and frothed out on any movies or magazines? Was there any exposure of anything finding its way to the cold shores of Kiwi land, or?
You really had to search for it. But I remember back in the day, my inspiration was Sarge's scrapbooks.
Oh yeah, I remember those. Yep.
They were always good to watch. The guys surfed well and they partied well, and there was always good footage of trips around Oz, and from that day, all I wanted to do was go to Oz.
Is that right?
From those videos, yeah.
So that's where the froth to come surf in Australia came from?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Sarge's surfing scrapbooks.
Scrapbooks. And a couple of friends lived in Cronulla, a couple older of the boys,
Yep.
and yeah, Cronulla was going to be our first stop for sure.
Yeah, right. Oh, cool. And did you have any, what was your like favourite sort of surfing memories of New Zealand in those early years? Was there any epic sessions that went down that I don't know a lot about the surf there, but I know there's a lot of different setups, river mouths and point breaks and all that stuff. Is there anything that sort of stood out in those teenage years where you just scored some unbelievably long tubing river mouth or something like that that's maybe now a popular wave that had no one around back then? Anything pops into your head?
Yeah, from Christchurch we'd go south. We're on a peninsula, so on a south swell there was kind of a peninsula with lots of bays. We'd get surfs around there, and then a big south swell would head north, sort of 3 hours to Kaikoura, and back then it was sort of really uncrowded.
Yep.
Good point breaks, river mouths, beach breaks.
Yep.
Sort of had it all. Yeah.
And super uncrowded.
Super uncrowded. Where I lived was kind of like a Florida setup. You know, it sort of didn't get much swell.
Oh yeah.
But there was always places to go if you wanted a wave.
Yeah, cool. And what about Raglan? Obviously, that's the most famous wave in NZ. Is that on the North Island?
It's on the North Island,
Yeah.
West Coast. Yeah.
Did you start doing trips up there, or how did it work?
Yeah, back in the day, the post office did a contest, New Zealand contest, and I made the final of the South Islands, and they took us up to Raglan for like a New Zealand contest, and that was the first time I ever surfed it. That was when I was 14.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that was the first experience. I mean, it was about 6 to 8 foot, and it was kind of out of my league, but
Yeah, right.
just to see it for the first time was pretty special.
Epic.
It's
And did you start hunting it a bit after that, or was it too much of a mission to get there?
Yeah, did another couple of trips once I'd sort of seen it.
Yeah.
And by that time, I was sort of old enough to think, right, it's time to start planning to get to Oz.
Yeah, right.
That was the main ambition, was get enough money to get a plane ticket and a little bit of money to go travelling in Oz.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at that time, were you thinking you were going to move to Oz, or you just wanted to go on a surf holiday to Oz?
No, I wanted to move
And why was that?
because of the waves.
Really? 100%? That was
Sarge's
it?
scrapbooks just sold me.
But
Yeah.
I mean, you had such a wide variety of good waves in New Zealand at uncrowded at your disposal, didn't you? So
We did, but I mean, seeing footage of the Goldie, you know, pumping guys in board shorts, just the
Yeah.
warmth, the tropicalness, just that's all I wanted.
yeah, right.
I wanted to ditch the wetsuits and
Did you dish your washing gloves? And
tracksuit pants and the woolen jumpers. Yeah, no, I loved skiing in the mountains, but the cold, I've always hated the cold.
Yeah, right.
And Aussie just lured me from the start.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so what was your first trip to Australia then? How did it go down?
Flew into Cronulla. A couple of the older boys from home had a flat there, right on the beachfront,
Yep.
Bando Road in Cronulla. And yeah, just flew in there, got a job, and just stayed there for about 6 months.
Yeah, sweet. What were you doing for work then?
I'm just working factory work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just
Sweet.
enough money. It was a 4 till 12 job, 4 in the Arvo till 12.
Oh,
So
sweet.
surf all day and then go to work in the
Yeah.
Arvos.
Back then, when you just had endless energy, it wasn't a problem, was it?
No.
Couldn't do that now, could you, mate?
And then Kelly was already there, and we got enough money to get a car.
Yep.
And as soon as we had enough money to sort of see us through for a while, we packed the car up and just went surfing. Did a surf
Did you
trip.
head to the Goldie?
Well, I mean, that was sort of the destination in the end, but all the way through was good. Yeah.
Yep, all through New South
Newcastle
Wales
and New
yep.
South Wales, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, classic. Any memorable moments from that road trip there? Did Kel try to kill you at all on that one, or any funny party stories that may or may not have happened?
One happened in Newcastle. We were in a car park. We just had a surf, and we all had meat pies, and we had a couple of non-legal stuff on us, and
Yeah.
the cops pulled up, and next minute they wanted to take us back for a lineup. There'd been a robbery, and we kind of fitted the description. And,
Dodgy looking Kiwis. Did you have lots of tattoos back then? Probably not.
Nah.
Because you've got lots now, but not then.
Yeah, and we had a couple of things on board we shouldn't have, so they asked us to follow them back to the station. So we actually had what we had. We threw them in our meat pies and
Really?
threw them in the back of the car. And yeah, we were in a police lineup.
No way.
An old lady came in and we had numbers holding up in front of us. And luckily she saw who did the crime and she chose number 7. But
Cool.
yeah.
Geez, you're a whole Australian life that's played out before you now could have really taken a turn for the worse off the straight of the bat. Get some old duck with Coke bottle glasses on, he can't quite work out. Yeah, it was those young fellas over there,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden you're in Pentridge, and yeah, it could be a whole different story we're talking about here.
It went from getting a meat pie in a Newcastle bakery to in a lineup at the police station.
That's classic,
and
man.
the guy that was next to me was the guy, and he was freaking out. And like you were saying,
Oh, so the crim was actually next to you in the car park as well?
no, he was in the lineup.
Oh, in the lineup, the guy next to you.
But I was, like you say, I was hoping that lady had good enough eyes to tell that it was him and not me.
Or when she pointed to the guy next to you, the cops didn't think they were pointing at you. Oh, that's hilarious. Wow, what a cracking story.
We love Newcastle, but we were kind of keen to get out of there.
Yeah, get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And okay, we're done here. Yeah,
Yep.
cool. And did you, northern New South Wales, that's a bit of a favourite spot of mine up there. I love that area. Did you get some good waves at Lennox and stuff?
Angary, Lennox, Lennox, Broken Head. That was probably my favourite area.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular area, isn't
We
it?
kind of didn't know whether we wanted to find somewhere and park up, but work-wise in that area, it kind of didn't look sort of too promising. So
Wasn't as busy back then, probably not as many work opportunities, I guess.
No, so we just kept driving, yeah.
And were you just sleeping in your car, or
Sleeping in the car.
what car did you have?
We had an old XB Falcon wagon,
Oh, yeah,
4.1.
Yeah,
Plenty of room, plenty of grunt.
Yeah, were you and Kel sharing the back there, were you?
Yeah, there was actually 4 of us. Yeah.
Proper Kiwis. Tight-ass Kiwis just jamming into 10 people into a bloody one-bedroom apartment and whatnot. It's, bit of a running joke there, but Kiwis, frothing surfing Kiwis have always been known to really squeeze the most out of their accommodation. So you had 4 people sleeping in a wagon?
An XB wagon, yeah.
Yeah, well, they were a big car.
They were a big car,
The old fatty Fords, as we used to call them. But at least you wouldn't have got cold at night time anyway.
Nah, it was pretty comfortable.
Pretty cosy in there.
Yeah.
That's classic. And then you rolled into the Goldie and...
Rolled into the Goldie and, the expectations weren't sort of up there. I mean, loved the place, but didn't have the feeling of staying to sort of settle in there.
Yep.
Had a few good surfs, saw some good bands, but it wasn't the place, so we kept moving up to the sunny coast.
Yeah, right, cool. And so what happened at the end of that trip? How did you, did you do the East Coast and then head back to Kiwi land, or what happened?
We did the sunny coast and lived there for a year, and then got itchy feet, drove back down to Cronulla, worked there for about 6 months, and then did the road trip round to WA.
Oh, right, so you just stayed in Australia that whole time?
Yep.
And then went across Nullarbor.
Yeah, went across Nullarbor, Cactus, and South Australia, and good spots. And then as soon as we got to Yowls, it was just like, this is the spot.
Really?
Knew it straight away.
So it was love at first sight.
Love at first
when you come
sight.
down that winding road down the hill, looking at the surf rolling in at Mainbreak and the cliffs heading up to Cape Naturalis, it was. I can understand how it was instant love because I had the same feeling. But So that was it. Both you and was it just you and Kel at that stage?
And another guy, and it was it reminded us of home. It was it was kind of relaxed, lots of room to move, lots of nature, and that was it. So we stayed here for a month. And
where did you stay when you
at the caravan park, Yellowknife Caravan Park?
The one on the beach, or
yeah. And we did work to sort of pay for our accommodation.
Sweet. That was about 95 or something, was it?
That was 80. That was 1990.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And then we sort of made a deal. Right, let's go home, save up, do a trip to Indo, and then we'll come back here and live.
Right. And had you been to Indo at that stage previously?
No, I hadn't been.
Yeah, cool. So, okay, so you stayed here for a bit. Obviously, fell in love with the place and surfed around everywhere, and it was pretty good. It was a holiday party town at the time. It wasn't very good for partying outside of holidays back then. Not like it is now. It's a lot busier now, but no doubt there was some good parties going on back in the day in those holiday periods back then. Anything
Yeah, we were kind of more surfing than partying, but I remember the pub was always a Wednesday night, was a good night.
Oh,
always had some good old school bands.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, classic. Okay, so you went back to NZ, you saved up some money, and you planned your first Indo trip. Where was that to?
Kelly was in Indo in '92, sitting in Nias, and as you do, you're always sort of trying to hunt for new waves.
Yep.
And he had a map of the Indo archipelago, and just thought, mentawai, there's got to be waves there.
Yeah, right. And you hadn't heard anything about mentawais at that stage?
Apart from a couple of videos, you see Tom Curran on the Indies Trader.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you didn't really know much about that sort of part of Indo.
So was Kel in Nias before you, was he?
Kel was in Nias in '92, came
Yep.
back and showed me a map and said, mate, we've got to go check out these islands.
Yeah, right. And did you know how you were going to check him out at that stage?
Well, we kind of had a small plan, but we just thought we'll get to Indo and just go from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about your first trip there then.
So we flew into KL, and then we caught the train, which was an overnighter up to Penang in Malaysia.
Yep.
And then we caught this boat through this channel that takes you from Malaysia across to Indonesia.
Oh, yeah. Is that the Malacca Straits?
Geez, I can't remember what it is now, but
Anyway.
we got to the mainland Sumatra, and then we got to Medan. First went to Sabolga. Sorry, we got to Medan and went over to Sabolga, and then caught the overnight ferry over to Nias.
Yep.
And then the plan was, we were sitting in the Nias port, and all I wanted to do was go 20 minutes and see the main wave, but we had a plan to go to the Tallows,
Right.
and we were going to charter a boat from there and go searching the mentawais.
And so you just chartered like a local fishing boat or something?
Yep, we sort of searched around the fishing village and found an old boat, and bought some wood and sort of made up a little bit of a tarp and stuff on the boat, and got some food together, and off we went.
So did you buy a boat or did you just charter a boat?
Chartered a boat,
Yeah,
a
so
fishing boat, yeah.
Couple of local Indos,
Couple local windows.
whipped up a bit of shade on it.
Yep.
And then said, okay, let's go putt out to the Tellos.
This is, very basic map, but this is kind of where we want to go and have a look.
Yeah, right. And it was just you and Kel?
There was 4 of us, but Cal was sort of he was the main man of what was going on, and we all sort of funded it, the 4 of us.
Yeah, right. And so what did you do for supplies and stuff on that first trip? Did you just a shitload of rice and hope you were going to get fish and veggies off islanders? Did you know that there was people at the Tellos and stuff like that?
The Tallows, we knew there was people at the Tallows, but the mints we didn't know anything about.
Yep.
So we had shitloads of rice, noodles, biscuits and lollies.
Yes,
That was about it. Hoping to catch a few fish, and food wasn't really a priority. It was kind of as long as the gut was full.
Yep. That's it.
Kind of trying to find the waves.
And what year was that again?
That was '93.
93. So that was your first sort of exploratory trip.
That was the first trip. Yeah.
So then, you went to Tellos to start with?
Went to the Tallows.
Did you score good waves?
Scored some good little waves there, and then just we sort of shot off that night.
And anybody surfing there?
No, no one surfing
and
there.
You didn't even know where the waves were?
Didn't know where the waves were.
Or what their names were. Probably didn't have names.
Didn't have names.
Yeah.
Kind of asked locals about stuff, but they weren't much help, so we kind of just had to scour the island ourselves.
Yeah, classic. And what do you do in the way of like a medical kit? Were you pretty prepared in that front? Or keep in mind this is, no GPS, no mobile phones, and it was a lot more remote than what it is now. If you hurt yourself,
oh, definitely.
Speedboats and
if you got yourself badly cut up, you're in trouble. That's for sure. But we just had a basic stitch kit.
A couple of band-aids and
some
some
band-aids, a bit of betadine, some Dettol.
Yeah. So you weren't super prepared on the medical front, or did you have a little stitch kit? Or
we had a stitch kit, a basic little kit, but
nothing major.
Nothing major, no.
Right.
No.
And malarial tablets or anything like that, 'cause it was pretty rife back then, wasn't it?
We had malarial tablets back then. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you went to the Tellos, and how long did you spend on that first boat trip there?
That was a 3-week mission.
Yep.
We had, like I said, we had a basic map, but we were searching all these sort of outside coves of islands.
Yep.
These days, you find that all the good waves are tucked right in, like places like Macca's and Greenbush and things like that. They're all tucked in right on the land,
deep in the bay.
But we were sort of searching all the outside skirtings of the bays.
Thinking that's where the point breaks were.
I reckon we jumped off for the first week out into waves that weren't waves, and we didn't know. And And then we were sort of going in between where now Macca's and HTs are, and just couldn't find any ways because we weren't scouring the bays.
You weren't going into deep inside the bays. You were sort of just going down the edge of the islands and looking for stuff out on the edges, I guess.
Exactly, and we had an old fishing boat that only went sort of 8 knots, so
Yeah.
the fishermen never wanted to sort of go into bays and get near reefs and go sort of near the waves, so they sort of just scoured the outer islands.
Yep.
And anyway, we were passing what now is Macca's, and we were heading towards HT's, and we saw this fishing boat, and looked closely, and it was a bunch of Aussie lads.
Yeah, right.
So they were about the first guys sort of surfing around there, apart from Martin Daly. And anyway, we caught up with them about a week later in Circa, which is the main port where you get your food and petrol.
Yep.
And the idea was to get these boys pissed up, and then they'll just tell us where everywhere is, you know. Because we knew they wouldn't tell us unless they were drunk. So we caught them for dinner one night. We said, "Oh, boys, we'll shout you dinner." And then we just fed them up in bin tanks for about 4 hours.
Tried and tested method, that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Get the old truth serum out.
Yeah, and you know what? They didn't budge.
Didn't they?
Didn't budge one bit.
Fucking weapons.
And they were pretty drunk at the end of it too.
Really?
Yeah.
No way. Wankers. Good on them. It was a different era. I guess the people out there doing it weren't seeking photos and glory and fame. They were hardcore bloody searchers, and they just weren't coughing up, were they?
Exactly, and they'd done the hard yards, and I would have done the same.
Yeah.
The one thing they did said, you boys are so close to finding what you're looking for, just keep looking, and that was the inspiration to keep going. Yeah.
Cryptic.
Yeah.
And what wave were they talking about, you reckon?
They were talking about Macca's and HTs.
Oh, were they?
Because we saw them going in between, and they had just been at HTs, which would have been offshore, and then it would have gone onshore, and they were heading to Macca's, and we were going the other way.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Crikey. So those guys were dialed in.
Yeah.
Wonder who those gurus were.
Yeah, they were definitely onto it.
Wow. And did they have a better boat than you?
Theirs was sort of the same, but it was a bit better set up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
So you went down around that area, and then what, after a couple of weeks, pulled up stumps and headed back to port?
It was kind of getting to the last week, and we jumped out at a couple of breaks, and yeah, we were kind of sort of losing a bit of hope, and then we were going past Macca's again, but we were right out on the points, and we just had a little pair of binoculars, and we saw a couple of masts in the bay.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought, shit, there's a proper boat in there. So we kind of chugged in there, and it ended up being Martin Daly and Tom Curran and a few of those boys at Macca's.
No way.
And by then, we were all pretty crook. We weren't eating well, and yeah, I had some bad sort of skin from not washing properly.
Scurvy, I believe they call that, amongst the pirate ships.
Anyway, we sort of managed to get enough power out of us to jump in the surf, and that was back when Brock Little was there and Damien Harbin. It was the Rip Curl crew.
Wow. Cool.
And we're out in the water, and Tom Curran saw how bad my hands were, and he invited me on board for some calamine lotion and some chocolate and some cold water, and it was just, it was a bit of a dream.
Luxury.
Yeah.
Wow, that's epic.
So to see him surf and then to sort of hang out with him, and for him to give us cold water, we hadn't had cold water in 2 weeks, and
yeah, right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool times.
And
so
were the waves pumping?
The waves were pumping, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Classic. How many boards did you take each on that trip?
Back then that was 3 boards each. Yeah. Yep.
All glassed in fins, no doubt.
All glassed in fins,
Yep.
yep. The old sticks between them and tape wrapped around them when you're travelling.
Yeah. Classic. That's pretty epic. So I was about to ask you what was your most memorable session of that initial run, but I'm guessing it was the macaronis that you just told me about.
That was the macaronis, and to watch Tom Curran surfing that wave was just something else, yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
In his prime.
In his prime.
Yeah. And did you get some other good sessions in that trip?
We jumped out at what now is Rifles, but we kind of didn't know it was Rifles back in the day, but had some good waves there.
Because, that is, as much as it's an amazing wave, I think it really is fickle in a way too, isn't it? Like, can be super fast and this, that and the other.
For sure. And if you don't know a spot and you're hitting it on the wrong tide or the wrong swell, it can just be nothing at all, you know. So
especially in Indo, that changes so much on tides and stuff.
Yeah, so we didn't have a clue what was going on.
Yeah.
But from that trip, we kind of had a couple of things to base ourselves off to go back to.
Yeah, classic. So, you went back to port and dusted off, did you head down to Bali after that for a couple of weeks or anything like that? Or was it out of money, we're all busted up, we got scurvy and lost a leg or two and we're heading home to Kiwi land to regather? What happened?
Nah, Bali wasn't really a thing back then. All we wanted to do was stay up that end. So
right.
we didn't go back to Bali till after 2000s, yeah.
So the love affair with Ben Chong Ali, as you know it today, wasn't a thing back then?
No, that was a late arrival, that one.
Classic. All right, so that was, what year again was that?
That was 93.
So then what happened? Went back to New Zealand, went back to reality,
Went back to reality.
earned some money.
Cal and I worked for a year and a half, solid 7 days a week up in the North Island, repairing the old Parliament building.
All right. Is that where your jip rocking started?
That's where the jib rocking started. Cal said, let's work for 2 years or a year and a half, save
Wow.
up enough money.
That's some serious foresight and dedication for a couple of young fellas. Let's work for a year and a half straight.
Oh, definitely.
With a specific goal in mind. That's pretty epic.
Yeah, the goal was worth it for sure. We knew what we had, and we knew we wanted to get back there.
He was pretty driven and focused, Kel, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
He's had a pretty good head on his shoulders.
He has, yeah. Yep.
A round head, rumour is it?
Or is it a box head?
A boxy. His nickname is Roundy because the boys claim that he had such a perfectly round head when they were surfing, and then he wore a helmet, and it just emphasised the roundness or something.
That's it.
So he's known as Roundy, and I thought Bradzy said his name was Boxy, so I've been calling him Boxy for a couple of years, but it turns out his name was Roundy, not Boxy. Anyway, so you went back, you worked for a year and a half, and you got your shit together, and you had old Roundy leading the charge, and your next assault was a lot more planned and had a lot better equipment. Is that right?
Navigational equipment, no. We just had a plastic handheld compass.
Oh yeah,
But,
cool.
At
least it wouldn't rust if it's plastic, I guess.
But we had 5 surfboards each. There was 3 of us. We
Ooh,
boxed up 5 surfboards each. Camping gear, cooking gear.
What, like tents and swags?
Tents, just tents and sleeping bags.
No swag.
No swags
Just
back
sleeping
then.
on the ground.
Sleeping on the ground.
Yep.
Kerosene cookers, kerosene lights.
Yep.
And we boxed them up. A friend was in the shipping company, and we boxed that up. And we also bought 2 inflatables in New Zealand.
2.
Boxed it up, shipped it to Jakarta.
And what engines did those inflatables have on them?
We didn't have engines. That was the Jakarta mission.
Okay, so
Yeah.
2 inflatables, a bunch of camping gear,
15 surfboards.
15 surfboards, shipped it off to Jakarta, and then how long did you wait before you flew up there and met it all?
We shipped that about February. Took 2 months.
Yep.
Met it up there in April.
Wow.
Probably took us 2 weeks to get it out of customs. You know what
Yeah.
Indo's like.
Yeah. Had to grease some hands, did you?
Oh, it was day in, day out. No, come back tomorrow. Oh, guy's not in today. Come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, one of those
Jam
scenarios.
karet, which is Indonesian for rubber time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We finally got it out of customs, and then the mission was to go and buy 2 engines.
So you had to go and sit in Indo for 2 weeks just to get the ball rolling.
Just to get everything sorted, yeah.
Travel took so much longer back then, didn't it?
It did. It was always a mission.
So when you went there on this trip, I mean, you spent 2 weeks there. I mean, that's the whole holiday for most people these days. That 2 weeks that you waited just for your gear. When you went up there in April, were you like, okay, we're not coming back till October, or
That was the mission. Yep.
Yeah,
it
right.
was a 6-month mission at least.
How much money roughly per head did you budget back and then? Can you remember? Just roughly
Roughly, it was about 7.5 to 10 grand
each.
each.
Yeah, cool.
And that was
Which
plenty.
is a fair bit of coin.
It's a fair bit of coin,
for,
but
for back then in Indo.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah.
but it's a fair stint, isn't it? Sort
Yeah.
of hanging out there.
Okay, so you you went and got a couple of 20 horsepowers or something like that?
We got a 40 horsepower
Ooh.
and an 8.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah, so we got sort of an auxiliary and a main engine.
Yeah, right. And how did you work the 2 boats? Did you like put the 8 on one and the 40 on the other? Or were the boats the same size, or how did you make it all work?
We bought an old 6-metre navigational ex-army boat from New Zealand.
Sick.
And a little sort of 2-metre one. So
okay. Yeah. So
It was kind of the main boat, and then we dragged all the gear in the other one.
Yeah, cool. That was your trailer.
That was a trailer. But in
Yep.
Jakarta, we kind of got all our gear together, got the engines,
Yep.
chartered an old rock truck, you know, the old yellow rock trucks that
Oh,
head up
yeah.
to Ulus.
Yeah, classic.
Threw all the gear in the back of that, and we jumped in the back of the rock truck, and we had 3 drivers, and we just said, right, you guys drive from Jakarta to Padang non-stop. We just want you to keep going. You can stop for food and drink, but just keep going.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Epic. So then you got down there and tell us about that first voyage out of port.
So, yeah, we got to Padang, got to the port, got all our gear onto the ferry, shipped it over to Circa, which is the main port,
Yep.
blew the boats up, bought cans of fuel, rice, veggies, noodles, as much as we could,
Yep.
loaded on board, and went straight to Macca's.
Straight to Macca's because you knew where that was.
We knew that was, and that was going to be the first 2 months, was Macca's, yeah.
Just straight up, we're going to Macca's
Yeah.
for 2 months.
Yeah,
And is that what you did?
that's what we did.
And where did you? Isn't it pretty like marshy and stuff there? Or?
It's very marshy, so that was the first mission. We had to give ourselves enough time to get there and enough time to search for a camp,
Yep.
get all our gear off and set up camp, you know, and that takes a long time. So
Yep.
finding where we wanted to camp was a thing in itself. We kind of sort of had to search reefs and tides and where we could drag the boats up, and
Yeah.
so we sort of found ourselves wrapped around in the Bay of Macca's,
Yep.
yeah, and set up camp.
Yeah. Right. And were you on the beach or were you back in the jungle a little? Or
We started on the beach, and then full moon, full tides, we sort of got washed out.
did you?
So,
So you got a tide into your tent in the middle of the night?
yeah, so
Did
we
you
kind
really?
of learned that, yeah, the longer we did, we sort of learned what the go was, but we sort of made our way into the bush a bit more, yeah.
No way. And what made a little clearing? Did you have a machete or?
We had machetes, yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
cool. That's
Yeah.
the standard equipment in Indo, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Classic. Wow. And just slept on the ground?
Slept on the ground, pitched
Yeah.
the tent. When we ran out of water, we sort of caught rainwater off the trees into bottles and just sort of boiled it up.
Yeah, right.
Caught a bit of fish and made our own pita bread and
Wow.
yeah,
It's epic. So you just took heaps of flour and rice.
heaps of flour and water and rice and
Yeah.
noodles.
And how were you catching the water off the trees?
Just
with
off the leaves into bottles.
Really?
Yeah,
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 right. Just tying bottles onto leaves and.
yeah. But the monkeys were shitting in the trees and that was going into our water, and we got crooked quite a lot. Yeah.
And were you on malaria medication all that time? Were you prepared to take medication for 6 months? Or I know the answer must be somewhat of a no because you're riddled with malaria. So what happened?
If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have bothered taking Lariam for 6 months. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So it didn't do anything.
Well, it just prolongs malaria until you stop taking the drug. So
right.
really, we should have just taken drugs, and if we got it, just pump the Lariam into us.
Okay.
But it kind of held it off while we were on the trip, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But 6 months of Lariam doesn't do your body any favours.
No. And you ended up probably on that trip more so than most. You because there's a few different types of malaria, isn't there?
There is, there's 7 strains, I think.
Have you got all 7 or?
No, we all got the same strain, P. vivax.
Right.
Cerebral's the one that can attack your brain and kill you, but the one
Yep.
we got, it's pretty gnarly, but it wasn't too bad.
Yep. And that leads me to the little topic at the start of the session. That's why I'm drinking beer and you're drinking vodka, because you once told me that because of all the malaria you've had in Indo over the years, you just found that beer never agrees with you since then. Is that right?
Yeah, I think Lariam attacks your lower intestine, and red meat and beer after that just didn't agree with me. So that's when I went to vodka.
Yeah, so you're constantly on the vodka due to your early Indonesian exploits. But you also told me you've never shit solid since that trip either, 20 years ago.
Not for a while, yeah. It was we sort of went to Chinese medical doctors, and I mean, Giardia and malaria really attacks your body, but all good now. But the body was messed up for a while.
Yeah,
but it was all worth it in the end.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, mate, it sounds worth it to me. So 2 months in Macca's, no doubt. You just scored it absolutely perfect with nobody around, I'm assuming.
Nobody around. I think there was 2 boats doing charters around the whole of the Ment.
Yep.
plus the Indies trader would sort of pop up every now and again. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, we actually were quite happy to see a boat charter coming around the corner
Yeah, right.
because it gave us someone to talk to, gave us someone to surf with,
Yeah.
and one of the charters always gave us his leftover chickens and chocolate at the end of the charter.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
So they just chuck their offal over the side and pretty much be you and the local snapper fish just snapping up the leftovers as they hit the water.
Exactly. So when we saw a charter boat, we were hooting, not
Fuck.
crying.
No
yeah.
way, that's
Yeah.
epic.
Yeah.
Imagine that these days.
Oh,
These days you just curse and spit.
exactly.
But,
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 months there, no doubt you just got tubed out of your absolute mind. That would have been amazing. Had some epic sessions. Did anyone get busted up on the reef at all?
You know what? We were pretty lucky. We had a different guy coming every month, a friend from home. So there was 3 of us that sort of did the 6 months.
Yep.
And we had a different guy every month. So he sort of bought us more medical supplies.
Yep.
No one did any major injuries.
Scrapes.
Few scrapes, few stitches here and there. The boards sort of held up well until the last month, and then they all sort of crumbled.
So when you when you did the stitching on each other, was there any form of anaesthetic, or was it just a bit of bloody Iraq attack and here we go?
A bit of Iraq attack, and here we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Clean the area and just do as good a job as you can.
Did you stitch Cal up, or
No.
he stitched you up?
He was the main stitcher, and one
Cal
of
was just running the show, wasn't he?
he was
Wow,
a good
mad
organizer, old Cal.
He's such a quiet dude too, you know. Like I know him well, and to our listeners out there, obviously they don't know him, but he's just one of those guys that's just a walk quietly, carry a big stick sort of dude. And you'd never guess it. He's a very quiet guy. He's very humble, but man, he really sounds like he was just a pivotal force in making all this happen. And I've seen him. Obviously, he's calculated it on land and focused, but man, I've seen him in the water, and Jesus Christ, he charges, man. He surfs good, and he's got no fear. I've seen him take off on big waves at local bombies here, and he's a bloody good surfer too. So, yeah, it's pretty epic. And obviously, you know, you surf pretty well as well. I know you won't agree to that because you're humble, but you do, and you know, charge as well. So, sounds like
Thanks,
it was
mate.
a good match, you know. And yeah, Kel really sounds like he was like a leading light, man. He sounds like a bit of a hero, really.
He was a good man to have on the trip. I mean, he was the main organizer, you know, of the maps for the start.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a good man. He's a good waterman.
Yep.
And yeah, he was a good bushman too.
Yeah,
He was a
right.
good man to have on the trip.
Oh, that's epic. So, did you just do like Macca's for 2 months and then leave, or surely you did some exploring?
We did Macca's 2 months, and then we thought, right, time to go surf a different wave. So we went. By then, we'd sort of done our homework. We knew where HT's was, so
Okay.
we went to HT's.
Yeah, because that's what, round the back of the same sort of island, or?
The next island,
Yeah.
but it's not too far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of Macca's is halfway up one island, and HT's is the start of the next island.
Okay. So you found that just by cruising around on days?
Yeah, we sort of did a bit of hunting and found that. Lance's left was round the corner, so it was kind of a good spot to sort of hang for another 2 months.
So you went and hung there for 2 months?
2 months, yeah.
And where did you camp? On the Lance's left side or the HT side?
The HT side, right on the beach, right in front of the waves.
Is that
so
right?
From there, we didn't even need the boats.
And was there locals there?
There was locals there, yeah.
And
local
what did they
village.
think of you when you rolled up and camped on the beach?
Yeah, the local kids kind of, yeah, they were pretty fun.
Yeah.
They'd sort of walk past with machetes, and a couple of times they'd flatten our inflatables because they didn't know what they were, and they'd
What?
sort of get the old machete and touch the old inflatable to see what it was,
Oh, no.
and just pierce one of the size of the
that's
inflatables. So
Oh, no way.
yeah, in the end we kind of had to hide the inflatables with palms and stuff, so
Is
they
that
couldn't
right?
see them. Yeah.
No way. And obviously you had plenty of inflatable patches, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, we had to get them in the end. Yeah.
But you didn't have them at the start?
Nah.
So what, you put in the order for one of the boys from next time round, bring some patches.
That,
So these guys keep prodding out.
that was the
That's
beauty of
nice.
having a guy every month coming over because we
Wow.
always had orders. Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
And did they have clothes? The
kids?
locals? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Obviously you guys didn't because I know what you're like. And I'm sure you guys are just running naked for months. But I was wondering if they have the palm leaf over the thing or would they have?
Nah, back then they had clothes, but in the 93 trip, you know, some of the islands would pull up to. The traditional mentawaians would come out in their flax and just full of tattoos. their tribal tattoos, and just, I mean, Mikkel was kind of the one that had the blonde hair.
Oh, yeah.
And the blonde hair on his arms, and the Indos would just stare at his arms. I'd never seen blonde hair on a guy
It's
before,
like
you know.
Pretty much thinking he was a spirit devil.
Yeah. He was God, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's epic. So, camped out. So, what did you do? Just slept right on the beach at HT's for what, 2 months?
Slept at HT's for 2 months, and, you know, when it was onshore at HT's, we'd jump in the boat and fang round to Lance's left. So those 2 waves sort of kept us going for the next 2 months.
Yeah, right. That's epic. So, you just did those 2 for another 2 months. Just did anyone else rock up at HT's? Was that more or less known than Macca's?
More or less no one. One boat would turn up, you know, every now and again, but that was about it. We actually would pull our boats up right up into the jungle, but on the full moon tides, the tide would come right in.
Yep.
And one night I got up about 2 a.m. to go to the toilet. One of our inflatables had gone.
Really?
The full moon tides had just washed it off the rope, off the tree, and ripped it down the beach.
So what happened?
Managed to swim out and get it.
Yeah.
And paddle it in. But yeah, if we lost one of those boats, we were stuffed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Classic.
So from that trip, you know, we kind of knew full moons we had to drag the boats even further up into the jungle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Just bring it down a bit there, mate. That's all good. You're keeping it nice and close, but it seems like microphone just needs to come down a little bit.
Keeping
That's
it
all.
too close.
Yeah, it's too close for comfort. So classic. So you lost the boat in the middle of the night, swam out and got it. No worries.
Yeah.
How were the locals at HT, apart from stabbing your Zodiac to see if it would stab back? Were you buying fish off them, or how did they even want money, or?
Yeah, we'd sort of barter, you know, we'd barter onions and potatoes and things like that to get fish and crab off them every now and again.
Right. So were they interested in money at all?
Well, when we parked up at eBay, I think I had, maybe that was my first bout of malaria, and the boys went off to what's now Rags for one day, and I just stayed in the tent,
Yep.
crook as a dog, and I was a bit delirious.
That's the way. I like how you guys operate. Yeah, you're dying of malaria. You stay in the tent. We're just going to go down to the next island for a few waves. Hopefully you'll pull through when we get back. Is that pretty much is that the method?
That was the method, mate. Just leaving behind. We're going surfing, yeah.
Classic.
But we'd go to an island and try and find a village, and that's where we thought was our safe part to sort of park up, pitch the tent with them, and
Yep.
that was base camp. But this village, yeah, I remember the guy coming into the tent and just going through all our gear,
Yeah.
and I was that delirious, I just sort of let him go about his way.
Is
And
that when you're at HT's?
when we're at eBay,
Oh, eBay, sorry, yep.
and the boys came home and got into their bags, and this guy had stolen everything. Back then you travel with traveller's checks.
Yeah, that's right, yep.
Stole all our traveller's checks.
He would know what to do with him. And what would he
No.
do with him out there?
He just saw US dollar signs.
Yeah, he just thought he was killed
He
it.
thought it was money.
Yeah, right.
Stole our passports, stole
Did he?
all our
And
photos.
you're just laying there in a delirium, watching this guy
going-
raid your tent.
Just going to go for it, mate.
Did he have a machete? Didn't need one.
Nah,
You-
he didn't need one with me
No
in my
way.
state.
That's epic. And then what did the boys say? What are you doing, mate? Have you let him steal all that stuff, or?
We actually didn't find out till we'd moved camp to another island.
All right.
Till we'd moved to HT.
Because I suppose you're not exactly checking your passport on a daily basis when you're
No,
sleeping on the beach in the Mentawais for 2
No,
months, eh?
definitely
Not
not.
much need for it out there.
So
I wonder what he did with them. You think he hung them up on his wall in his hut as it's like a family heirloom now that gets passed down generation to generation. Little picture of Brad Smith and Kelly McDonald passport, and these were the 2 spirit devils that came, and we got these magical bits of paper off them, and they're framed on the wall. Or
I think
what the hell would he
thought
have
he
done?
won lotto.
But he just got nothing for
He
it,
got
mate.
nothing.
He would have got nothing.
So we're at HT's.
He would have been better off stealing your rice, wouldn't he?
He would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
We were at
classic.
HT's and went, hang on a minute. We haven't got traveller's checks. We haven't got passports. We haven't got anything.
Oh, shit. That's
And we
classic.
kind of based it back to, it must have been our last camp. So we started doing trips back to that village. And every time we went back, he'd hear our boat coming.
Yeah.
And he'd grab whatever he had and he'd run off into the jungle.
Right.
And the next day would come back, he'd hear us and take off. The whole village would sort of take off into the bush.
The
And
whole
so
village would.
The third day,
So the whole village thought that they'd scored.
the whole village thought they would won lotto. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
They're
they
like,
were
shit, we
moving.
got to get out of here because we've just got like thousands of dollars from this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it was just blank checks
Yeah.
with nothing on them.
So the third day we went into land and we wrote in the sand. There was one guy that could speak Bahasa Indo.
How was your Bahasa at this stage?
It was not too bad, but no one spoke Bahasa Indo.
In
They all-
Mentawai.
They all spoke mentawai. So
Yeah.
we kind of had to learn that lingo as well. But
Wow.
we wrote in Bahasa, okay, we're coming back tomorrow. If you haven't got our gear, we're going to trash your huts. We're going to steal all your pots and
Fuck
pans. And
You
we're gonna
wrote this in the
in
sand.
the sand, you
Yep.
know, as best as we could in Indo.
Yeah.
And we're going to take all your chickens. We're going to steal everything.
Going to steal your chickens. See, that's so much better than stealing passports. That's fucking awesome. That's
So-
unreal.
So the next day we came in and we dropped my bro off at the point,
Yeah.
and he ran in through the jungle in case they could
That's
hear
through
our
the
boat.
back roads.
Through the back
So
roads.
you just planned an assault on them.
We planned an assault, and we took the boat in. Same thing. We got to the camp, no one there.
And they were running.
And it was like, okay. So we started trashing the huts. We grabbed all the pots and pans. We started throwing them in bags and putting them in the boat.
No way.
We were chasing the chickens round. They were squealing and carrying on. We couldn't catch them, but we were making a lot of noise.
Fuck, no way.
And then next minute, the daughter of the guy that stole all the gear came running out with this bag, and it had all our gear in it.
No way.
So it took that raucous to get our gear back. But
That's
that was
a
kind of, I
crazy
reckon,
story, man.
5 days, 6 days of going back to this village.
See, I've known you all this time. I never knew that story. That's such a fucking sick story.
Yeah. So
Wow, that's what surfing in the Ments was like in '95, folks. So, yeah, there you go. If you ever get in trouble in Indo, but these days, maybe just threaten them with loss of pots and pans and chickens until you
chickens.
get your way.
you get your way, yeah.
Wow. So you got your passports back, traveller's checks as well.
Traveller's checks, got everything back, photos, everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And did you give them any money or anything like that, or was it just too much bad blood? You were just like,
Oh,
fuck, you
too
guys
much
were
bad
out,
blood, mate. We grabbed the gear and never returned.
and
yeah.
you never came back.
No.
And
no.
where did you go from there? Was that the end of the trip? Was that, 4 months in by this
That was
stage?
4 months in. We did another month at HT's, and then the last month we had to go back to Macca's.
Yeah, right.
Last month was at Macca's, yeah.
Yep. And why did you go back there? Just for safe? It was comforting. You knew it was pumping. It was all
It
good.
was just the best wave ever.
Was
yeah,
it?
Macca's
Yeah.
is just a perfect wave.
And no doubt, in those 2 months, you just had perfect 6 to 8 foot HTs. You know, or how'd you go?
Yeah, HT's. I remember seeing Kelly Slater there just making it look like
By the way, let's not call it HTs because it should be called Lance's Rights. Is that right?
that's
And my
that's
dad's
right.
name is Lance, and so is my son. So I would rather call it Lance's Rights.
Well,
And
that's
apparently
good
that's the
that you
guy who
say
found
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was like an afterthought by some Americans to call it HTs, but apparently the dude who found Lance's left found Lance's right, and he was some fucking Aussie guru, probably that fucking dude that was pissed in port that never gave you up his secrets. That was probably Lance, man. Probably was. And he was a legend. So Lance's rights.
And I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly how we felt back in the day. But everyone just keeps saying HTs and Maccas. Now I just say that myself.
Yeah.
But back in the day, we named Maccas slingshots,
Did you?
because there was two trees kind of sort of nearly dead on an angle, like a slingshot, you know. So
Yeah, right.
Maccas wasn't called Maccas back then.
So
So
you called it slingshots. There you
Yeah.
go. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, on Barrel Surf Podcast. Macaronis is not macaronis. It's fucking slingshots. If you've got any disputes, you can come on down to my shed, and me and Bradzy will fucking tell you otherwise. And so Lance, did you know that Lance's Rights was called that when you were there?
no, we didn't. No.
Did he give that a name at all?
I can't remember what we called
Pumping
that.
fucking rights?
Pumping fucking rights. eBay we called Duabatu because it had the two rocks at the end of it.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, we just made up all our own names, and we kind of didn't. I mean, macaroni sounded a bit gay back in the day when we heard that, but
Yeah, you would have been choking, wouldn't
yeah,
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, ended up spending the last month at Macca's, and by late October, that's when the wind started changing, and
Yep.
kind of felt it was time to leave.
Wow, what an experience. And by then had all three of the regulars, you, Kel, and what's the other dude's name?
My bro,
Oh, your brother.
Abbo, yeah,
What's his name?
Abbo.
Abbo. Why, has he got darker skin than you,
He's-
obviously?
Yeah, he's pretty black, yeah.
That's pretty funny that you
Yeah.
called him Abbo and not Maori, since you're from New Zealand, and Abbo being short for Aboriginal.
Yeah, he did a trip to Oz years ago, and everyone thought he was an Abbo, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And you've got a tiny bit of Maori in you. You only just found out recently.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so that leans to you being quite tanned. That and the fact you're into that Don't you do that arsehole sunning thing where you sun your freckle for health reasons? A bit of that.
Apparently, from your stories, yeah.
No, yeah, right. So your brother was there as a staple as well.
Yeah.
So by that stage, had all three of you just had like incredible bouts at turns at being sick through that? Had you all had malaria and you know, when you're in, even when you go to Bali these days, you know, or someone who hasn't been to Bali and you stay in a hotel, they get some crook messed up sickness that can't be explained, you know, let alone camping out there for 4 months. Had you all had turns at being pretty crook?
Not really. I mean, it's pretty amazing to live in the jungle for 6 months and live the way we were and how healthy we stayed.
Really?
One of those guys, might have been Lance, came on land one day and he said, "You guys have been here for 4 months. How come you look so good?" You know, he couldn't believe that we weren't half dead.
Wow.
So we were pretty lucky, but in the last month, I reckon that's when all the boards started snapping, the leggies started snapping, and yeah, there was a few injuries. I think the body was just sort of wearing down
Starting
after.
to wear down. I
Yeah.
mean, you were in your prime, what, like 25 or something
23, 25,
like
yeah.
just peak physical condition.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still in pretty good nick now, but back then, you and Kel is as well. Kel's still a pretty fit guy and, you know, looks pretty strong and well balanced on his feet. I imagine he must have been a bit of a specimen back in the day too. At that
Yeah,
time.
he was a bit of a weapon for sure.
Yeah, old roundy.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic. So then, what happened? Must have been a pretty interesting feeling, packing up your tents for the last time and looking at your war horse of a Zodiac that no doubt had patches all over it, and I'm assuming tents had holes in it. And did you just leave stuff behind, or what did you do?
Oh yeah, everything wasn't worth packing up. It was wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah. We sort of took it back to the mainland and ditched it. We sold one of our boats to one of the yacht charters. We sort of came friends with one of the guys, and he bought one of our small boats.
Oh yeah.
And we shipped the other boat back to WA.
The bigger one.
Bigger one, yeah.
Yeah, right. Where did you ship it to in WA?
We brought it back to Yells actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
And you got rid of the smaller one, and did you think you were going to go back and do it the next year, or was it such a huge, crazy adventure you knew that it was something that you're just not going to do all the time?
Well, yeah, we really did it well, and we knew we wanted to go back, but you know, coming to WA, I think the next year was up north was what we wanted to experience next.
Okay.
Nalu and the Bluff and
Wow,
places like
just
that.
had a taste for adventure, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, we'd seen videos of that place, so that was sort of the next place we wanted to hit.
Wow. So that's amazing, because it'd be so easy to just, now that with that knowledge that you had, to just go, well, why would I go and do a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know about when I could go back and potentially do it even better and score it all again? But you decided up north.
Yeah, we did 1 year up north, but then the itch was to go back to Indo after that.
So when you came back to WA, had you moved to WA by then, or?
We'd shipped gear to Perth.
Yep.
And we stayed in a Northbridge youth hostel for about the first 4 days.
Northbridge, to those people who don't listening, is like the absolute #1 nightclub, red light district of the city of Perth. So interesting place to come from after the Mentawai's island solitude, straight into the nightclub strip of the city.
It was weird. We were still in Indo
Jeez,
gear.
you guys must have been toey.
Oh, we hadn't socialised for 6 months apart from the four of us, sitting around a table with all nationalities, and we couldn't really hold a conversation that well, to tell you the truth, because we were stuck in jungle 6 month.
Tubed out of your
Tubed
mind.
out of our mind world. So
Wow.
we got
You were
drunk.
just grunting at each other pretty much.
We got drunk and just all we could do was laugh, really.
Mate, I'd be laughing too if I'd have just done that. Holy crap.
Holding conversation.
You would have just felt like you were, without sounding rude, you just would have felt like you're so superior to everyone there. Just going, these guys have got no idea what we've just done, you know? Like, I know I feel better than the average punter when I'm down the local restaurant after a day's good surf at the local break. I feel like you guys don't know what I've been doing. It's better than what probably you've been doing. So that feeling just must have been magnified 1,000 times sitting in those bloody pubs there. Crazy.
It was definitely entering a new world for sure.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So when did you decide to move to Yallingup after that?
There was no intention to stay in Perth.
No.
It was just I already had a car organised to buy in Perth and Old Holden.
Yep.
Through a guy that we'd sort of met in the mentawais.
Yep.
And yeah, as soon as I bought that, we just drove straight down.
Yeah, right.
Stayed in the car park in Yellingup, and then got a caravan at Herbie's Dunsborough Lakes Caravan
Dunsborough
Park.
Lakes, yeah,
And that
because you'd
was-
obviously done the reconnaissance mission a couple of years earlier and knew that's where you wanted to end up.
Yep.
So you didn't even go back to NZ after Indo. You went straight to WA,
All the
down to
gear was
Yals,
shipped to WA, yeah.
and then what? Just started looking for jip rock and work and stuff like that. And
Started looking for a house, and then
Yep.
and then Cal picked up his first job with Kev Cabana. He was designing houses back then, and got us our first job with Keith Russell, which was
Yeah.
a local builder.
Yep, classic.
And did an all right job, and got more work from there.
Wow, unbelievable. So then, so then you went up north next winter.
Went up north, yep.
Yep. What did you do up there? Just it would have seemed like the desert up there would have seemed like a 5-star hotel. I would imagine having a supply store a mere 2 hours bumpy gravel track away would have felt like heaven, wouldn't it?
It was. It seemed too easy at the time, but yeah. Just a real Aussie red earth, desert, good waves, epic trip.
And how long did you spend up there, roughly?
We spent a month up there.
Yep.
And then we went up to Broome and then went, so I went to Exmouth and stayed out there for a bit.
Yeah,
and then
classic.
went to Broome and did a week up there.
Yeah, classic. And then what, just drove down and then settled into Yals for the summer, or?
Settled into Yals, got work, and it just sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah, right. Okay, so was there ever any talks of doing another crazy ass Mentawai's mission, or was it did it just, what happened? Did someone get married or have a kid, or what happened?
Indo was always there. I guess we had good waves in '93 in Nias, and that's when I just wanted to go back there.
Yep.
So sort of started going back there again.
And there was no talk amongst the original pack of you and your brother and Kel of, let's gear up and do another crazy bloody... I mean, you must have seen there was more islands on that map and figured we could do more, or was it ever on the cut? I mean, it must have been talked about.
The funny thing, Adzy, to beat that trip, I don't think you could ever beat that trip. So I was always a bit scared to go back, and it wouldn't be the same, you know?
Yeah, right.
So I kind of held off for quite a while because you could never beat that trip.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I guess, that's a fair point. I would have been looking at it going, well, maybe the aim's not to beat it, but just to equal it or enjoy it the same again. But obviously you just absolutely had your fill to such a satisfying extent that you just didn't feel the need to put in all that crazy effort again when you could just maybe go for a quick trip to Nias. Well, quick trip still would have been a month back then and score some waves. Yeah, couple of months.
And wanted to see G-Land and deserts and
the big,
really
big
wanted
name
to
joints.
check out the others now. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, because you hadn't done them.
No, hadn't done them.
Shit,
hadn't
you just
been
went
to Bali.
straight into... Hadn't even been to Bali.
No.
You just went straight in the deep end, didn't you?
Straight into the deep
Mate,
end, yeah.
That is... I applaud you for that. That is fucking serious balls and surf adventure, man.
Thanks, mate.
That's fucking unreal. To just bypass Bali and all these known paths and just go straight into Zodiac machete wielding fucking Mentawai passport stealing fucking islands. That's amazing. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it seemed to do it the other way around,
You
but
sure did.
that was the best way to do it.
Oh man, that's crazy. So so then you just started doing a couple Nias runs and a couple G-Land runs and starting to tick off all the big names in Indo over what little 1-2 month stints.
Yeah, I think deserts and Nias became my hit spots. They
Yeah.
were just a left and a right were just doing it for me. Yep.
That's right, yeah. And I did have that written down in my notes because I know, I've known you for, 20 years, but, I've known you really, really well for the last 10 to 15 more so. And I know that you had a very, I wouldn't say rigid, but a firm plan each year to work a lot, save up your money, do your 2 months using Bali as your base, where you became enthralled with Ben Chong Ali. That's just a joke, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't like Ben Chongs. It's just a little joke he's running. He's quite the ladies' man, quite the contrary. But he loved a party in Bali when there was no surf, and you used that as your base to just basically fly to Nias and fly to Desert Point when the swell was up. You'd do your runs, and then you'd come back to Bali and grovel around on the beach breaks and live it up by the swimming pool and sun your rig and tune the women and have some vodkas and hit the dance floor and all that sort of stuff. And that was sort of your staple for a fair while after that, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. That 6 month was just pure surf. And it was kind of nice to do a couple of trips where you go on a surf mission, and when it went flat, you'd fly back to Bali and have a bit of fun.
Yep.
Eat some good food,
Yep.
swim, and then wait for the next swell and take off again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. And as I I was a bit slow on the uptake, and later down the track, I had the good fortune of joining you a couple of times in Nias there,
You did.
Yeah, we had some good waves together and a bit of fun.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, they were good times. Mates, what was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, Mexico. Where did I know? I always remember that one of the very first times I met you, seeing a photo of Puerto Escondido, and knew that you did a couple of runs there. You and Kel once again. Was he the leading light there? Is that what happened after up north, I'm guessing?
Cal was there in the early days as well, and I'd seen some pictures of him.
So he went there before you?
He went there before
Jesus
me as
Christ,
well.
who is this guy?
He's
the
man.
biggest dark horse ever.
He is.
I work with him all the time. He's just such a guru.
He actually made one of the videos. You know how they have the Porto videos with all the biggest barrels of the year? He actually
Really?
made one of those, yeah.
No way.
So
Such
I
a
saw
weapon.
some footage of him, and it's just like, that's one place I've got to go as well.
So was that, you guys came back here, you were living together in WA, you did a run up north, and then what, he just slipped off to Mexico without you knowing, or how did it work?
The year after up north, that's when Cal slipped off to Mexico.
Did he?
Yeah.
And why weren't you there? What happened?
I think I was just working that year.
Yeah,
Yep, stayed working. I think I might have done 2 weeks in Indo, a really short trip.
Yep.
And then Cal came back just swearing about Porto Escondido and Pasquale's, and yeah, that was going to be the next mission.
Wow. And that's just, I mean, everybody who listens to this podcast is probably a surfer, so they all know what Porto Escondido is, and it's just such a huge, I've been there, and man, it is a formidably huge, heavy, tubing beach break that's mostly closeouts with the odd sick makeable one, and it's insane. It's so heavy.
Crazy beach break.
Yeah, to be focused on chasing that, you guys were pretty serious surfers at the time,
Yeah, well, they reckon that's one of the deepest trenches in the world out the front of Porto's there.
And that's why it wedges in like it does.
And you don't see it coming, do you, until the last minute?
Yeah.
Next minute it just jacks up.
Mate, I surfed at about 8 foot and got flogged. And I knew that when that joint was 8 to 10 foot, like it was that day, that there was certain point breaks around that were 4 foot and tubing for 500 metres. And I went, you guys can get stuffed. I'm out of here. Because I'd been surfing them all week, so I just went back to them. But as I've rubbed salt in the wound to you many times, you didn't even know about those point breaks, did you, mate?
You scored those point breaks, yeah.
Yeah. And you had no idea. What, you were just there purely for Porto
Purely
Escondido?
for Portos.
Purely
Yep.
for the big barrels.
Yeah.
And did you, I mean, being as realistic as you can without obviously, overhyping it or trying to be humble and underhype it, I mean, how big did you surf it?
Well, you know what Portos is like. You can sort of start where it's 4 foot on those bigger days, and you can paddle down to where it's 10 foot.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'd say 8 to 12 foot. I mean, I wasn't catching those waves, but I was out there, and yeah.
You would have got a few 8 to 10 footers.
Got a few 8 footers for sure.
Yeah, which is pretty heavy, but you weren't like, you see these days, guys 15, 20 feet, you guys never paddled out on a day like that?
Nah, I never paddled out in those days, no
Yeah,
way.
probably no one did,
Nah,
I'm guessing.
That's when you go to La Punta and those points, really.
Yeah.
But I can just remember, as you'd know, when you're out the back and a wave breaks, the spit that flies back at you is just incredible, isn't it? You've never seen anything like that before.
Such a powerful wave. I remember on like a 4-footer just getting so smoked, and I remember being underwater thinking, this is a 4-footer. I'm getting my arms torn from my limbs. And I just remember thinking, I don't want anything to do with this joint. I'm out of here. And I just spent all my time in Mexico. I went there for 2-month-long stints, and I just spent them all at this secret river mouth that was just like 500 metres long, 6 people out tubing for 10 seconds at a time. And I'm like,
epic.
Yeah. And that was still heavy, still smokier, but geez, it was nothing like Porto.
Yeah.
So you did did you do 2 trips there or just one?
I did one trip there, yeah. Yep.
And what, a month, 2 months?
A month.
Yep.
I had a friend who lived in Huntington, so sort of hung out with him a little bit too. But yeah, that was a pretty special trip, that one.
Yeah, unreal. And then after that was back to, you probably started to fall into the more of a regular routine of living in WA and just doing your Indo trips after that. Your worldly oats were sowed to some extent.
They were.
Yeah.
3-hour trip, from here to Bali.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong, can you?
Yeah. So then you started getting into that, and I'm guessing not long after that, somewhere, the leading light of the adventure, Kel, was obviously too appealing to the opposite sex, and someone locked him down by the name of Hannah.
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
He got married, and next minute he was having kids, and that kind of slowed him up a bit.
Yeah,
so
sure does.
his Indo trip sort of slowed down from there. Yeah.
Yep, and you just became the Seminyak playboy from all reports.
I just kept going to Indo, and Nias was just, it's funny because Nias got really busy through the 90s.
Yep.
To about 2000, and it just got out of control.
Yeah.
So I started going other places, and then I thought I'd go back in 2003, and it was quiet again. So it went through a quiet stage again.
Sort of, faded off the map a bit,
Faded off
didn't it?
the map, and
then the earthquake came and sort of made it popular again when it got
did.
shallower and changed the way it breaks. It's funny, we just released a episode that T-Bone, one of our other hosts on Barreled Surf podcast, did with Thornton Philander, one of the original Nias gurus, and he was, talking about the differences of the before and after earthquake and all that stuff. It's quite interesting.
He was one of the originals, wasn't he?
He was a guru. Yeah, for sure.
And were you on that trip when we met him in the Bunyaks? No, you weren't actually. The year after I was in the Bunyaks with you, we met him in the...
did you go back to the Bunyaks?
Yeah. It was kind of cool to sort of have a chat to him.
He mentioned that in the podcast with T-Bone that, he now hunts the Bunyaks extensively.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised he didn't mention about Treasure Island. He was saying how Treasure Island's such a great wave, and I've actually seen footage and heard stories that was majorly affected by the earthquake as well, and that before the earthquake it was just unbelievable.
Even better.
Yeah.
Another section on it. Yeah.
Yeah, like way longer, held bigger, and was just like pretty much the best right-hander in Indo. But
yeah,
mate, we can tell you all that we want about it now because it's changed.
It has.
So, and Max is out at like 4 or 5 foot.
That's where I saw him. So yeah, he obviously loves that wave. Yeah,
that's classic. All right, well, mate, we've covered a fair bit there. That's some bloody awesome Indo stories, man.
Thanks, mate.
So tell me about more recently. What's your gig these days? Just on a quick lowdown. I know it, but let's just for the listeners out there, give us paint a picture of what you're up to these days.
These days, well, can't go to Indo this year because of the virus. Been hitting a couple of of your favourite spots.
Yeah, we've been teaming up for the Dawny, haven't we? Quite a lot. Getting a few tubes at an unnamed local slab of a reef.
Really enjoying that spot. And enjoyed seeing you get a good barrel yesterday. And
that's right, listeners. You heard it here today. I did get a barrel in front of Bradzy, so I'm pretty happy about that yesterday.
It was good timing that I was in the channel, wasn't it?
I was pretty stoked it was you and not someone else. Yeah,
that was one of the waves of the day from my point.
Yeah, it was a nice little wave.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, just working a lot. We're pretty busy. Still keen to get back to Indo.
Yep. Still hitting Yelling Up Main Break, which is our local down the road.
On the right swells, yeah.
On the right swell in winter when it gets big, we get some pretty epic sessions out there, and we actually had a pretty epic one out there a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
That you decided to go to sleep midway through the session, which we did mention in one of our previous podcasts. Just tell us quickly about what happened there, Bradzy.
Yeah, just got held up. It was quite a strong offshore, got held up at the top.
It was quite a nice 6 to 8 foot.
It was a good day,
swell.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bloody
Good
great day.
direction.
Waves were pumping. There was about 8 or 9 local legends in our own lunchbox. Just local guys. We're all friends. We all, actually most of them were good surfers. I was just sort of at the bottom of the rung, but
you're humble, mate. You're too humble.
And everyone knew what they were doing. Was my point that I was trying to make there. It wasn't like there was people that didn't know what they were doing. And so a good sort of solid 7-8 foot wave came your way. It was your turn. We all yelled at you to go. What happened next?
Yeah, I just got caught up at the top, and I remember just slapping my face that hard. I reckon I was out for a couple of seconds.
So you got caught up the top in the wind and then got driven down
with
the lip onto the surface of the water?
The surface, and then I just slapped the side of my face so hard it felt like concrete. And I reckon I was out for a couple of seconds, came to, a mate had paddled over because he was sort of right near me, and made sure I was all right. Then we copped about 3 on the head. Yeah,
they were solid waves. I was ducking under them ones, and we were worried about you. We could see something was wrong, but you were sitting on your board. So I thought you were winded, actually. And we're like, oh, he's winded. And then there was some, 3 solid 8-footers. And we're like, shit, why is he not paddling? What's he doing? He's just sitting there. So then what happened?
Yeah, those 8-footers didn't worry me because what had just happened was pretty heavy.
And you didn't really know
So,
where you were anyway, did
Yeah,
you?
so it was kind of wasn't too phased about it, but yeah.
So you got knocked out temporarily and what came up and actually didn't know what was going on?
Kind of didn't know what was going on, and then when I did, it kind of didn't worry me because I felt so much better than how I had a couple of seconds ago. And then a mate was there trying to help me. He snapped his leg rope. And then you caught the fourth wave in and made sure we were right. So, yeah, I was pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, well, I rode the wave in and got to my feet and saw the guy that was supposed to be helping you about 150 metres away from you with no board, just swimming around in the white water. I'm like, what's he doing over there? And I saw you way down on the inside and, rode my wave to you, and you'd actually saved his board from getting lost at sea because, as we all know, but not everyone else does, that when you snap your leggy at this break and the swell's big, it actually... It takes your board all the way to the inside, down the end of the reef, and then it gets sucked into that rip and just heads out into deep water and
It does.
and out into nowhere. And a lot of people lose their boards on those days. They just don't get them back.
For sure.
So, he tried to provide you assistance. In the end, you saved his board.
It was a good feeling, though, to know a couple of the boys were right on me. It's a good feeling to know that someone's there looking out for you, for sure.
Yeah, well, it's, at your local.
And that's what we do, don't we?
Yeah, that's it. No, I went in, seen you on the reef. I was pretty pumped up with excitement. I think I was yelling and carrying on and applauding Courts for trying to save you. And you were a bit dazed and confused and made your way in the lagoon. And I headed back out for a few more.
You gave us a few thumbs up and you were back out there.
I was pretty pumped. It actually took me like 15 minutes to get off the reef.
You were saying,
Yeah, the swell just... It's like the ocean just got angry all of a sudden. The vibe changed from everyone high-fiving each other to everyone sort of quietly shitting themselves. And the swell just jacked up a bit.
Jumped for a bit there, didn't it?
Everyone got washed in. There was only one bloke left when I got out. It was only Taco sitting out the back.
Right?
Yeah, everyone got smoked by sets and really reared up. But, so that was pretty cool. And, okay, well, mate, we've been going for a while. But just quickly, do you watch much surf media these days? Like... just your clips on Facebook and stuff like that, or do you follow anything at all? I mean, no one really buys magazines anymore. It's all pretty free clips, but do you follow it a little bit, Instagram, anything like that, or?
Not a hell of a lot, no.
No, not really. So you're pretty detached.
I watch it on Foxtel, when the comps are on, but that's about it, really.
So if the CTs are on and the timing's right, you'll sit down at the end of the day and watch that?
For sure, yeah. But like you say, the magazines, you don't really buy mags these days
No,
anymore,
you don't buy movies.
No.
I actually just bought Laura Enever's movie off iTunes just for, I don't know, it just felt like haven't bought one in a long time and wanted to see what it was about. A chick charging slabs and all that. It was pretty interesting, but I'll give that. I was going to give it a review if we were going to do a more standard podcast, but since it was more of a one-on-one interview, I won't go there today.
Yep.
But all right, and then mate, just quickly, can you give us? There's a mosquito getting on me. He obviously went and bit you and just went, fuck this guy. That guy's got 1,000 types of mosquito fucking shit.
He's got nothing left for us.
He's got nothing for us. Mates, 5 favourite surfers, without harping on too much. No, it's a bit of a Johnny on the spot, but most people when they give you 5 favourite surfers, there's always 3 of them are pretty much the same. Being the Kellys and the whatnot because they're so good. But you can say anyone you want. Just give us a quick 5 and why.
Well, I'm thinking 2 off the bat right now from 2 weeks ago would be Taco and Damon Eastow. I just love watching them out at Yells.
Yeah, classic. Couple of local guys. Taco grew up over east on the northern beaches of Sydney, and Damon Eastow's an absolute local hellman who was born and bred in Margaret River. Yeah. And Taco moved over about 20 odd years ago as well, and they both just, mate, they surf small waves good, they surf big waves good. They're both absolute big wave aficondos, actually. I mean, they're insane.
They are, for sure.
So you love watching them surf out at Yells, I guess, when it's big, because you see them in the flesh.
Yeah, they're just an inspiration the way they surf it, and they surf so damn good. And 2 of the most humblest, coolest guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
And to go with the big names, I watched Oki today and just thought, wow, I really miss watching that guy surf.
Yeah. What did you watch that on?
It was something on Facebook.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, someone posted an old vid of him.
Oh, classic. Yeah, cool.
Tom Curran, obviously.
Yep, especially since you had such a personal connection with him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like, when you ask someone their top 5, you could always guarantee that either Ockie or Tom Curran or Kelly or Andy's going to probably be in one of them. So, but to have such a personal experience with Tom Curran would really justify him making your top 5, I would imagine.
For sure. And I have to say Tom Carroll.
Yeah, sick.
The way he charges, those guys are just legends, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, happy days. That was 5. Okay, so I know you mentioned earlier no surf strips this year for anyone, really, unless you're going up north, which I'm doing in a week.
Yeah, good on you too.
Got a spare bedroom there, mate, if you want to come join us.
Wow, wouldn't mind
You can
that.
bring your babies, being 2 staffies. You're a big dog man, but we'll give you free rent if you look after my 2 kids for a day or 2.
Okay, deal
Yes,
done.
Sick. All right, and the other reason why you probably haven't been travelling as much the last couple of years is we're both quite into our old steel bumper cars, and you've been building a HQ Kingswood that had humble beginnings as a 202 Belmont, which to our overseas listeners is sort of a 1974 factory Australian family sedan. But in this day and age has a cult following, and especially once you drop the big V8 engines in them and that, and you're about 3 years into a build on a HQ. Give us a quick rundown on what that thing's packing.
An old Kingswood I bought out the back of Vass in an old barn there.
Yep.
Been a 3-year build, back to bare metal.
Yep.
Just got painted cherry black. It's got a 383 stroke Chevy in it.
Yep.
That's
a big engine.
It's going to be good. And knowing that you're building a Sandman, it's going to be unreal to sort of cruise around Yells and a couple of old cars.
It will be good. Yeah, it's an absolute street machine that Bradzy is building. It's a highly overpowered V8 gurgling monster of a car with nice shiny paint and fresh chrome and big fat wheels, and it's really. There's plenty of surfers out there that have good 1 foot in the bogan side of the line and 1 foot as a surfer, and I think that's both of us actually, Bradzy. We love a good V8. Who doesn't love a good V8? So, but obviously that's taken up a little bit of your Indo funds a little bit in the last couple of years. I'm aware of that, but I'm sure we'll get back there again next year. So, mate, it's been an absolute amazing talk with you, Bradzy. I've been mates with you for 25 years, and even though I knew this story, especially about mentawais and that, I never probed and got the depth of details that I did today. So I'm actually stoked that we got this, because that was fucking entertaining, man. That was a cool story.
Thanks,
so
mate.
Well done to you and Kel and your brother Abbo. You guys were legends for doing that.
I feel privileged to sort of get the podcast, mate.
Yeah,
Thanks
man. No, it's good, man. People are gonna love it. That's such a crazy surf story. So you got any final words of wisdom to part with there, or just anything that you want to leave with anyone?
Not really, Adzy. Just sort of keep surfing, keep healthy, and let's hope this shit sort of leaves us soon, and we can go travelling again.
Hopefully soon we can go travelling Indo, drive around in your HQ with your 2 dogs in the back, and just breathe in the fresh air of Yellingup.
Exactly.
Fucking legend.
We live in a good spot.
We do. All right, Bradzy. Well, thanks heaps for coming in, mate. That's bloody awesome.
Cheers,
ching,
Adzy.
ching. Cheers.
Thanks for having us, mate.
Well,
much appreciated.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in to Barreled Surf Podcast, and we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll leave it to DJ Namu to round it out with some quality music. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
G'day everyone, thanks for listening. Check out some of our sponsors, they're all bloody awesome. Forester Estate Wines, top quality local wines, Cheeky Monkey Beer, the best damn beer in the southwest, Shark Eyes Wetsuits, absolute gold. Athletic Greens, take control of your health, and Down South Physio, look after your body, stay in the water. Thanks for listening everyone.